All right, welcome back down with the Chiefs Pit with Timmy Petty, Mark Petty, and Richie Petty. And this week we had a tough week. We had Mark's best friend and confidant dog. She left us, so that gave us an idea of doing a dog episode on all the shop dogs we've had through the years, because we've always had dogs hanging out. And Mark's little dog, Ellie, I guess she's been around 10 years with us, or.
Well, if she'd have made it to October, she'd have been 15 years old.
Wow. And she was in the very first Petty Brothers podcast. She was in it, and she's been in a few more, but she's every time we do a podcast down here, like Mark said, he'd sit right there to him, and beside him, and he'd sit there and pet her on the head.
Well, I'd like to say to everybody on social media that, Richie put it out there, and they put it out on Petty's Garage, but everybody that's responded, thank you. We're going to miss old Ellie girl. Mm-hmm. And I guess this is part of being a little brotherly. They're going to get me choked up here.
No, it's not what this is about.
No, but it's all our dogs growing up hung out in the shop, and Ellie was like the last shop dog.
She was our last shop dog.
Yeah.
And then hopefully, there's more to come, and we'll have years of more shop dogs, because we don't realize it, but we're dog people.
That's what I was going to say.
Absolutely.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But over the years, it seemed like in a lot of the pictures or paintings or whatever, there was always a shop dog. Some of them, I have no idea what they called them. Usually it was Brownie, Blackie, Whitey, whatever.
It goes back to even with the Reaper shed, Daddy and Richard and Lee, they had a German Shepherd out there. And I forget the name of that dog. Daddy used to tell me stories about it.
I almost think it was Brownie, but it might be wrong.
I think it was too.
But I could be wrong.
Because when T10 had that dog.
I'll ask Uncle Richard sometime see if he remembers.
But they kept it out there, and they kept it on a chain or whatever. And I think Daddy had told me, and if I'm wrong, tell me, but I'm pretty sure the way my memory recollects, that he's talking about a lightning storm come in and it lit that dog up and it jumped up.
Yeah, because every time we ever had the animals chained,
he said,
and a storm would come in, he'd say, get that chain off, put them in the dog lock, get that chain off of them. Because, I remember that.
Which
same
now
story.
We don't chain animals, because they've come back and said that that's not the right
thing. No,
to do.
but that was then.
Yeah,
that was then. This is now.
Long time ago. But yeah, we one of the first dogs I ever remember was Bobo.
Yeah.
And Bobo would go up to the ball field, come over here, and he had one blue eye and one brown eye, and everybody said, "What dog's blind in one eye?"
But she was a collie.
It was Bobo was a guy.
Yeah, he was a collie mix, and that was back when me and Mark was little bitty.
Yeah, we was.
Y'all,
I remember.
All right,
we lost Bobo when I was 6 or 7 years old.
But when we'd go out of town, come back, Bobo would talk to us. Remember?
Yeah, when you come back in,
he'd go, "Hello,"
Yep.
and Mom would say, "Hello, Bobo."
Yeah.
Remember?
I do.
I mean, even though you was a little bitty, you remember that.
No, but I do.
Now, Uncle JR, he had that German Shepherd mix.
Uncle JR was our mom's brother.
And that dog, Casey, was a German Shepherd.
And we give her a middle name. It was Casey Elaine.
Yeah,
but
because we liked Casey in the sunshine.
Right. That's about the time.
Uncle JR lived in the city, or he was a little bit of a drifter.
Yeah.
Right. Drifter.
And he couldn't keep her no more.
But he had numerous dogs that ended up with us, and they become our dogs, but they were really
still his dogs.
Just so you had Casey, Blue, Cherokee.
Yeah, that was.
And we ended up with some. They were Labradors.
Yep.
Labrador Retrievers.
Casey was a German Shepherd, and she was a really smart dog. She could ride on the back of a motorcycle. She could climb the sliding board and slide down.
And that dog could run.
And JR taught her all that, because that's who she'd ride up on his motorcycle.
Whatever it was, besides German Shepherd, she was lightning fast.
But she reminds me of another dog Mark had, which I think we're going to stay with Casey. But we had some dogs.
Well, we're going to be all over the board on the dog deal.
Well, Ellie reminded me of Casey, just a good-natured dog and just real happy all the time.
And everybody loved it.
Yeah.
Everybody loved it.
That's funny. You talk about how they. Daddy and them, their dogs was always Brownie or Blackie or whatever.
Right.
You remember we had that one white lab, and she was White Gal.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about her.
She was a unique dog because she wasn't a albino, but the two black labs had a solid white Labrador. Remember? But she wasn't an albino because she had blue eyes.
But I'm gonna say them's our dogs, personal dogs, but they would always come to the shop with Daddy. And I bet some of the old guys that used to work here probably remember these dogs, but like Casey and who was after you was going through the timeline, right?
Well,
Cherokee,
we were trying
Casey.
to, But even
Fred.
those dogs.
Fred is a famous story.
But
Now,
you remember-
we'll have about 5 minutes talking about Fred.
But you remember the blue Commando Jeep that he had? He'd come out every morning and go to work. He'd open the door, and 3 dogs would jump in there with him, and he'd ride to work with him, which was just right across the road. And then
But why them dogs want to come to the shop?
brake truck.
The brake truck, and then all the guys that worked here would pet them
They
just like
babied them, yeah.
Yep.
But that was one. Even though Daddy acted like he didn't like dogs, he would. And that one dog tore up the inside of the Jeep.
Yeah, that was Cherokee.
Cherokee.
Okay.
Got that in there.
But in the early '80s, they actually called the engine shop the Dog Pound.
Because all the dogs lived
Right.
around and all, yeah.
Yeah, that, and they when
Well, I didn't know go there. But
If
you
they
go-
were bagging on the horse,
I mean, dear gosh, the people that worked here are going to remember why they did it.
Yeah.
They when they get a bad engine, they call it a dog. So
that dog wouldn't run.
smart alecky, somebody put a sign on the engine room
Dog
door that
pound.
said
the
the
Dog Pound.
And then but Fred.
Yeah, Fred was
Gotta talk about
he was a
Fred.
bass hound,
Fred may be one of the most famous shop dogs.
Now,
especially when it snowed.
remember
Yep.
Fred come along? I think
Yeah.
he was already somebody gave him to Dad. He was already grown up and all that. But we named him Fred because of Smokey and the Bandit. Remember?
Yeah,
Because
And he was
Fred,
yeah.
Let's back up. Fred was a basset hound.
Yes, yes,
We're not
yes.
giving enough information.
right.
Fred was a basset hound, but even Rick Potter stopped by last week and he was talking about Fred, and he said it was funny. He said because he said your daddy would come to work, and he said then about an hour and a half later, Fred would follow him. Fred wouldn't because Fred was a basset hound, low to the ground, couldn't jump up in the truck or
It
the
wasn't
Jeep.
very fast.
But Potter man said, "Old Fred always got here for the break." And then when we played Little League Baseball, some of the area folks might remember this. We played baseball up there. Earl Small would announce all the games at Level Cross Ball Field,
Yes.
which Earl Small was Level Cross Ball Field.
Yep. So it'd be small field.
But I'll never forget, old Fred would come up from Daddy's house through the woods and come through center field. And old Earl would have to say, "All right, everybody, it's time to go to the concession stand and get a hot dog. We got to let Fred get up through here."
Yeah, right.
So he would come all the way across the field. They'd wait on him, and then
What he'd do, he'd get up there under the bleachers and look for people's hot dogs and hamburgers.
Well, a lot of people feed him one, you know.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, the story about Fred too, and you can verify this one, Timmy. But I don't know who it was, but somebody buy them donuts on the brake truck and roll them. And Fred wouldn't move very fast, but that old son of a gun would take off on them donuts.
You told it perfect. That's true.
we need to get some of them. If you worked here during the '80s and remember Fred, give us a holler sometime. Come on the show, talk about old Fred.
We might want to keep a couple of them stories down the down.
Well,
Yeah.
certain things we
So
didn't
moving
know.
past
We
Fred.
get into the
Oh, sorry.
90s now with
Well,
So we didn't miss no about it.
I don't think so. So then
Blue
we
and Cherokee,
sort of
they
put
just-
Ellie in front of a lot of the shop or dogs that came over here a lot.
All right, let's get into 92 there when you came back.
Was Murphy here before Brownie?
Yeah, but no.
Our sister had a dog,
Our
and
sister
we don't.
Elizabeth
We think
Ann.
it was a feist,
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the office. Yes.
but it was a real butthole.
But that's how these dogs become shop dogs. They come to work with their
Right,
they
with
come to work
whoever.
with us, yeah.
So
But yeah, Elizabeth Ann's
and we called Murphy the one bad hombre because he growled
Oh,
at everybody.
Yeah.
and Richie sure did used to pick on that.
Well,
dog.
yeah, you did too. Yeah.
Well, then she got Brownie, which was like a Chihuahua,
Yeah, she was.
something another,
She loved
and it was mean. Golly, it was mean. Remember how mean
Yeah,
that
but
dog was?
we done skip Yogi.
But that's what I was going to say.
Okay,
when you
yeah.
come back-
Yogi. Well, was Yogi before them?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, right in
because
right
you
in
come,
the midst.
You come
of it.
back with us from you left.
And
the
we ended
Samoas
up.
and came
I
back
had
here.
2 Labradors, and one of them didn't make it very long. And I brought one of them over here because
Timmy pulled Uncle JR. He brought his dog.
I dropped the dog
dumped
off
it
at
out,
Daddy's. Yeah.
And then it became a shop dog, and it lived around here.
But we came back from a race. I think it was Texas, and we'd been driving 2 or 3 days.
And Yogi's a black lab.
And Yogi's a black lab, and there's a little and kind of a small industrial park right down the road here, and and Stephen Thornburg was this. He goes, "Damn, is that Yogi?" So and later on they named
That
the
road,
road Labrador
Labrador
Drive
Drive,
down there,
yeah.
and
I think old Yogi had a girlfriend up there.
I think he did. It must have because he
Yeah.
was down there, and that was early in the morning, and
Now about this time, Yogi was a good dog. He was good natured. He just lay around, let you pet him.
Oh, and by the way, Richie, the Yogi died while I was gone on the road and come back, and I still haven't paid him for the information on where he's buried at.
You didn't pay the funeral expenses for him burying that dog.
And he still hasn't told me that. So that's one the tidbit I'm going to have to get.
He's still a shop dog.
And Mark says he knows. So that's 2 against 1 here.
I was out of town with you. They didn't tell me either.
But you said you knew.
Yeah. Well, say
Wait a minute. We missed a dog. Augie.
Augie, yeah, that was your dog.
Yep, and that was another black lab.
Yeah.
There was a lot of Labradors through here.
Because he'd lay up there in the old shop with us when we worked on
Yep,
them
that's
late
back in
ones.
the 80s.
Augie, yeah.
Yep.
So
And the little fella in the 80s.
well, yeah, that was sort of in that right around
Early
Fred,
80s.
because Gary Wagner would
Yeah.
would go over to him and say, "Hey, little fella." And
Yep.
remember how everybody used to pick on Gary? Hey, he's out there talking to a little fella.
But yeah,
But
but
this
that was
little-
nobody's dog.
It was just a stray.
But this dog, he figured out to get in the shop at night when everything was locked up. He'd come through the dyno to the water.
Little fella?
Yeah, that's how he got in the shop.
It was. I don't even know what kind of dog it was.
He was he was a Sooner.
He got,
So-
he got.
When did Bob Dooley come along?
Well, wait a minute. We got to get.
Yeah,
we had
we
Pudge.
waited for that.
Mark had his dog Pudge.
Pudge and Bell. Richie's dog Bell.
German Shepherd and a Collie German Shepherd mix. And them 2 dogs, they run the whole area, and they were really protective of this shop. I remember Pudge would come in and have a car cover on there, and she'd go out there and jump up on the race car and sleep on the car
She
cover.
would. That's
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
And my apologies to John Hayworth because he come around the corner one day. John was a suspension guy up at Petty Enterprises in the 90s.
Yeah.
And he come around the corner that day, and Pudge jumped up from a nap and bit him.
Okay.
That's the only. I think that's the only time any of our dogs ever bit anybody around the shop,
Yeah, that was it.
as far as I know.
Because he surprised her.
Yeah, in either way, but
Now, there
John
was-
was good with it. But sorry, John.
Yeah, but they were they were protective, and if anybody came in and they were laying out here, they would bark and let us know they was coming in on us. And but they were good dogs, and they I guess Bill till 2004 or 5, and Pudge she
Yep.
did about the same time. When we do miss them dogs still, and then that's when you got Ellie.
Yep.
Right after Pudge.
Yep. Yep.
And 15 years later.
Here we are.
Yeah, I was talking
With no
about-
shop dog. We're out of
Yeah,
shop
we're out of
dogs.
shop
But
dogs. Don't bring us any.
No,
We're
no,
just
we're
we
good.
No, we're good.
The best dogs are the ones that just kind of happen.
they just happen.
Yes,
That's
right.
exactly
So
right.
I went
You don't-
through,
You don't, you
a-
don't go buy a
Don't
good
go
dog. They
looking
just
for 'em.
they come find you.
That's right.
I went
That's
through
right.
a boxer kick, and
Oh yeah, I forgot about your dogs.
and my middle
Oh, yeah.
my middle dog was Gertrude,
Yep.
and she was the fat one, and just like me, but she used to come over here a lot, and there's lots of photos that we have with her, and we'll probably put one on them up. But I had Shuggy and I got Nikki. She's the one I got left, and I think after that I'm kind of out of the dog business for a while.
Yeah,
Now,
that's
Uncle
me.
Richard, he had that big dog. It looked like a bear. I forget the name of that dog. When he lived over here at Mark's house,
Was it Smokey?
I don't know. But that
It was a Newfoundland.
I was
What
a
it was
little-
Newfoundland?
I was a little bitty feller, but that dog just seemed big.
Yeah, it looked like a bear almost.
And Dale, him and Jeffrey,
They always had the Irish
the Irish
setters.
setters. Yep, they had Lady,
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times
but they didn't necessarily come to shop. But when we
they would go to the ball field too.
Yep, they would.
Yeah.
But most time when you go over and
Yeah, most
play
time
basketball with
Dale-
Jeffrey or whatever, them
Dale
dogs
would
would be
drive
around.
him around in his truck. You'd see him always riding around
Yep.
with him.
Yep, the Irish setters.
And we mentioned Bob Dooley, but you kind of cut me off on that. That was Mom and Daddy's little dog,
Well, it's turned
Well,
out
actually,
it was
Ramsey-
Ramsey's dog,
Yeah.
and that
and ended up staying with them.
ended up staying with him, and then and that was Daddy had that scooter at that time, and that dog would ride that scooter with him for a long time.
And Daddy loved Bob
Mom and
Dooley.
Daddy both did. didn't
They
they?
love dogs, period.
I know.
They were out there.
Them, yeah, never mind.
They were sitting out there at the end of the driveway one day. Mama was working in the flower bed, and a squirrel run by, and Bob Dooley took off after it and got run over.
And they were right there with him.
They
Yeah.
was- they were,
Boy,
Yeah.
Mama was
she
upset.
was
about
upset.
that.
Yep. She was a
God.
good little dog.
We've
But
had,
you know why I think them dogs? Why do you think them dogs they like hanging around the shop because
No,
the
getting
brake
attention.
truck and the snacks.
Getting attention.
But these old concrete floors, I think, was always
Nice.
cool in the summer, and I
Yeah.
think they like laying on them too. But they didn't mind coming in the winter either.
Well, we're gonna miss Ellie because she was part of our podcast. Like I said, go back and watch our very first one, and Ellie's on that one with us. And then you can hear her on some of the other ones sitting here panting.
Never see me petting.
Said you petting her, yeah.
She had separation anxiety,
Yeah,
didn't she?
she was
Yeah.
a
Really
good
bad.
old dog. And anyway, we hope to one day another good dog finds us. How about that?
That's right.
Well, ain't nothing wrong with a good dog.
Well, leave us some comments about your dogs and any shop dogs, and like and subscribe. We appreciate you.